Ladies and gentlemen, hello and welcome to the first installment of the Steyer Sound. I'm Trey Steyer, the host and creator of this podcast. While this isn't the first official episode of the podcast, this is serving as the introduction of sorts. I know a lot of people may not know me, and some might know me a little bit, but I wanted to share my story and what you can expect with the Steyer Sound in the coming weeks and months. For those who don't know me, I am Trey Steyer. I am 22 years old and from a small town called Lumberport in West Virginia. The town has a population of about 700 to 800 people, and I was born and raised right here in the Mountain State. I don't come from a family with a background in two-wheel racing of any type. My first introduction to racing was as a kid. My dad was a huge Dale Earnhardt fan and then a Dale Earnhardt Jr. fan once Dale Sr. passed away, and my origins started in NASCAR. Ever since I can remember, I've absolutely loved racing, loved NASCAR, and I still watch it every weekend to this day. Back in the day when I was growing up in the mid to late 2000s and early 2010s, NASCAR content was on all the time on Speed Channel. You used to be able to turn it on, and whether it was trackside or NASCAR performance, there was always NASCAR content of some type on the channel. One night I turned on the Speed Channel, expecting to see NASCAR or some type of automotive content. What I saw instead changed my brain and changed the way I thought about things. I saw this man riding a blue dirt bike that had the number 7 on it, and he was wearing white and blue gear. Blue was my favorite color as a 6-year-old, so I was immediately captivated. This man was riding out on a supercross track, and he looked like Superman to me. There was somebody behind chasing him, and since I already knew what NASCAR was like, it made things pretty easy on me in figuring out what to expect. That night ended up planting the first seed for my motocross and supercross origins. The next seed that was planted grew at my grandmother's house. Whether it was family dinners, birthdays, holidays, my cousin and I, who were 3 months apart in age, would always be playing video games or playing with something. He had a PSP at the time, and he introduced me to the world of MX vs. ATV Reflex. I was absolutely hooked, and a short time later, I got MX vs. ATV Untamed for my Wii. That set things up for me to get into Moto heavily, and I played MX vs. ATV Untamed so much the game eventually quit working. After a few years of video games and occasionally checking in to see what was going on, the 2012 Monster Energy Cup marked my official introduction to the sport. It was the first race I ever watched all the way through, and it was a huge night. Justin Barcia won the race and his first major ride aboard Factory Honda in the 450 class, and it was also the Ryan Dungey shifter race. In the amateur all-stars class, some guys named Cooper Webb and Adam Cianciarulo were running up front and stealing the spotlight. I was hooked from there, and 2013 marked my first full season of watching. A year later, I got my dad into the sport and made another fan, and that summer, I went to High Point Raceway for the first time as a fan, and I got to watch the guy who brought me into the sport and captivated me, James Stewart, win his final race as a professional, even though nobody expected it to be his final win. From a young age, I always wanted to do something related to racing. Originally, my dream was to be a crew chief or a high-level mechanic for a NASCAR team. Unfortunately for me, the math started to get harder and harder and harder once I hit high school, and for a while I was kinda undecided on what I wanted to do and wasn't really sure of where I wanted to go in life. My outlook started to change during the fall of 2020 when the world was embroiled in the coronavirus pandemic. I was at home trying to decide my next steps for college. Around this time, I wasn't in a great spot mentally, and I ended up turning towards motocross podcasts for news, entertainment, and a simple escape from the rest of the world. I also realized at that time how much I loved to write. I always loved writing essays in schools, and oftentimes teachers would appoint me to go around the class and help other students improve their own writing. I also had a tremendous amount of respect and adoration for the biggest professionals in terms of commentary and reporting and writing. I knew I wanted to do something related to racing, but I wasn't sure what, until I applied to WVU to become a part of their journalism program, and I eventually switched to their sports media program. When I attended the 2023 High Point National, I ran into Michael Lindsay from Vital MX in the pits. I saw him and asked him simply, I want to do this and try to get into the media side of things as a job. What should be my first steps and how can I break into the industry? Michael looked at me and told me that one of the biggest things missing in today's industry is writers. He said that so many people want to post photos and want to post quote unquote Insta bangers and other assorted highlight reels. He told me that writers and editors were largely disappearing from the scene. That immediately planted the seed in my head, and I realized that I couldn't be dreaming anymore. I needed to take action and actually chase my dreams. I started writing articles about the sport after High Point, starting with a simple race recap. It was far from my best work, but it was something to get the juices flowing and to get the gears turning in my head. Eventually, I came up with the idea for my Unsung Heroes series of stories. When I was younger and attending my first few High Point Nationals, I always wanted to meet the factory and top-level stars. However, there was always a huge line around their pits, and certain times, a 30-minute window maybe at the most, and sometimes tickets, exclusive wristbands, to get into that line. Instead, I would go around and meet the guys at the smaller teams, go to the privateer section, and see the people in the vans. It was guys like Ronnie Stewart and Freddie Noren and Brock Peterson who made my day as an 11 and 12-year-old and made me feel something that I didn't feel from those factory teams who seemingly excluded the normal fan. While the factory riders get most of the spotlight, and deservedly so for their success, there are hundreds of articles, stories, and posts about the likes of Jet Lawrence and Eli Tomac, Hayden Deegan, Ken Roxon, and the list goes on. I created my Unsung Hero stories to highlight all of the privateers who were scoring points in each class that weekend, and it turned into a large series that has run for 2 years now nonstop. In my first week of writing, I was able to interview 3 professional riders, Aiden Shive, Chase Yentzer, and Matt Burkeen. Things kept progressing my second week of writing for Redbud 2023, where I interviewed several more racers, including a pair who were racing in the World Supercross Championship. My early writing was immediately catching some attention thanks to the people at Snowboard, PulpMX's Discord channel. Several members of the channel, including Tiller332 and Funky Chicken 251, which you may recognize as Heather's stopwatch on Twitter, were reposting my articles and sharing them along. That caught the attention of Zach Newberry, who added me to the Imperative MX site from September 2023 until the site shut down in February 2024. I served in somewhat of an internship role during my time at Imperative MX. I wrote my Unsung Heroes series of articles on the site, as well as doing some race recaps and a few other things. My first article once I joined the site was a synopsis of the team history of JGRMX, a comprehensive list of every rider who rode for the program, including some who lined up for the team and didn't even make a main event. This article caught the attention of Brett Smith, who runs We Went Fast. Brett and Clinton Fowler would eventually add me to the We Went Fast team during the summer between my junior and senior years of college. I served as an intern for We Went Fast for a few months, and my primary role was to help build and develop venue pages. The venue pages on We Went Fast highlight the tracks and stadiums that make up the Supercross and Motocross Championships, as well as highlighting iconic moments through the history of the sport. I also helped edit the Shop Rag, which is We Went Fast's weekly research packet. In my 2 years writing and covering the sport, I've been fortunate enough to interview over 100 people within the industry, from riders to team owners to mechanics and other officials. While most of my writing has been on my personal WordPress site, traysteier.wordpress.com, that I created during my time in college, the small site has given me a platform to keep building and growing and prove to people that I want to be in this sport, as well as giving me a home to share the stories of people within the industry and racers trying to move up and constantly compete at a higher level. I'm sure there may be some people saying, oh great, here we go. We already have 500 Moto podcasts. What makes the 501st different? On the Steyr Sound, I want to keep things lighthearted. From my experience working with Imperative MX, I know how fun it can be to participate and to listen to a conversation that sounds like a few people just bench racing about motocross. I also want to interview people within the sport, share their stories, and collaborate with other colleagues within the industry. Some episodes of the Steyr Sound may feature myself as the host with an interview guest, while others may have a co-host. The upload schedule is also not set in stone yet, but I want to try to do 1 episode per week about a range of topics in the motocross world. For me, this podcast is all about gaining reps, having fun, and being able to grow professionally, personally, as well as building up more of a fan base. If you have suggestions for potential interviews, segments, or potential co-hosts, please let me know on social media. You can find me at TJStyer3 on Instagram and find me at Styer23 on X. I value your feedback and would love to use it to try to grow this podcast and become a weekly success story. The first official episode of the Styer Sound should go live sometime next week. Thank you so much for listening to this introduction episode. I hope you were able to learn a little bit about me and the vision for this podcast, and I hope to see you around in the future. This is Trey Styer from the Styer Sound, fading out.